People sometimes ask me about what domain names they should register. Now, last year, so in 2012, Google basically decreased the benefit you get from having a keyword-specific domain name. I guess we could see that kind of coming because people were sort of getting used to gaming the search engines a bit by registering a really specific domain name like legal service provider bendigo.com, and you would get the keyword of that phrase, legal service provider Bendigo, would come up in Google quite easily because you had that domain name. So, and I guess you can see that Google would think, oh well, that's the company name, so that should be the first one and all that sort of stuff. You can see where the logic is, but that's been decreased in priority. So your domain name, actual keywords in it, are not as sort of valuable as they probably once were. Okay, so if you are an international business or you are operating and you expect people to find you in other countries, it's probably a good idea to try and get a .com. If not, then a .net would be okay as well. For a local market, so if you're in Australia or New Zealand or Canada or UK, then you want to register your local country, the second level domain name as well. So for Australian businesses, which is the ones I have the most experience with, our first preference is always let's get the .com.au. Okay. Now, if we can, we'll get the .com of the same thing. That's probably that's the basic. If you can get those two for a business, then you're pretty much right, and that would be a good minimum. And certainly the .com.au, I would take the region. If a business is location targeted, so if your customers are mainly in Australia, I would certainly prefer to have a .au than a .com. There are some benefits of being a .au domain name if you're ranking for Australia. Now, similarly, like in New Zealand, you've got .co.nz, Canada is .ca, UK is .co.uk, and all the other countries have got their relevant domain names as well. Okay, so if the .com and the .au are taken, next step is the .net and .net.au, and there's fewer of those registered. The Australian name space is about 2.5 million domain names registered, and I think about 2 million of those are .com.au, and then there's maybe 1.5 million are .com.au, and then 500,000 .net.au or something like that. So there's still room. There's opportunity to register .net and .net.au. If you want to protect your name, the business name, if that's important to you, then you might want to register the .net.au and the .net. And that's probably the extent I would take it. This doesn't seem like there's a lot of benefit into getting like a .biz or a .info or .org. I mean, if you're planning on being like a multinational brand or something, then sure, go knock your socks off. Get everything you can because you don't want other people registering them. But as a small business, you don't need like 50 domain names. And Google doesn't give a rat's if you have like 100 domain names. You get one website for one website address. That's it. You don't get to show up 50 times because you've got 50 domain names. It doesn't work like that. So just use the most and you want to pick a domain name that's not too difficult to spell, is reasonably short. If it's got keywords in it, great. Don't make it say anything silly when you read it or spell weird things. I guess the classic one is the website called Experts Exchange, and they have a hyphen in their name. But if you take the hyphen out, Experts Exchange. Not the ideal choice for a domain name, you might think, and that's probably why the hyphen's in there. So my principles for choosing a domain name generally are: you want something that's short, or as short as is reasonably possible. You want words that are easy to spell and not like 15 different variations on that spelling. Words, if you've got, generally have more than one word in a domain name. So you want preferably words that don't start and finish on the same letter. So if your first word in your domain name is international, try not to make the second word lozenges, because it starts and finishes on the L, and then people don't know if there's one L or two L's, and it's just confusing. And don't use international in your domain name anyway. So short, don't repeat letters if you can help it. Make sure the words are obvious and easy to spell. Preferably like 2 or 3 words is okay. Don't make them too long. Sometimes it's appropriate to have the business name as the domain name. Not always. So if the business name is quite long, you might want to pick a keyword domain instead. So an example of this recently is we did the website for Intimate Moments Wedding Hire. It's quite a long quite a long name, lovely name, but it's fairly long. Turns out Newcastle Wedding Hire was available as a domain name, and that's also really good keywords in terms of what people are searching for. So that's what we ended up using. A bit shorter, a bit easier to spell, words aren't so long, all that sort of stuff. Because you might have to use this as an email address. Like if you want to have, you@yourbusiness.com.au, you don't want the your business blah 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 to be really long, because otherwise you're just making it hard for yourself when you start writing it down or giving it over the phone. I was trying to think if there's any other rules. Okay, don't use hyphens. Oh my god. Do you realise how few people know this? Okay, so a hyphen. This camera's going to defeat me. Right, so this thing here, this little minus sign, that is the hyphen. Some people sometimes call it a minus sign, a hyphen, a dash, a stroke, the thing next to the zero. I'm trying to think of some of the other words, but people don't always know what it is. And if you use a hyphen in your name, you are adding just extra challenges for yourself. There's no benefit. Google doesn't impress. You don't impress Google by having hyphens in a domain name. Maybe there's a case where there's 2 words and you need a joiner and it makes sense to do that. Okay, fine. But I'd have to say, in general, bad idea. Just really not smart. You would be... The number of people who've come back to us to get a second domain name or a shorter one because the first one they picked was too long, or it's got hyphens in it, or weird spellings, it happens more often than you would think. So avoid that like the plague. You can't put fancy characters into domain names. It is changing in terms of like the East Asian languages and Arabic. Now you can use domain names with those letters or characters. But in general, the Australian English type domain names, you can't use things like $signs, ampersands, all that sort of stuff. So you need to be within the normal character range for it to work. Okay, I think that's probably all my thoughts about registering a domain name. Basically, try and make it simple, easy to remember, not too long, and include your keywords or your business name if you can, or some variation on those. Or even an acronym. Although acronyms, even 4-letter acronyms, are getting pretty rare. There's still some of them available, but it's getting unusual. And I would say pretty much all 3-letter acronyms just about will be gone, even in the .net.au space. So acronyms are getting less easy to organise. Okay, thank you.